So everybody, I've been working on this study for about 3 years or so. Finally, I get to tell you about it. So this is about how many bees get hit by cars. But before we get into the study, let me give you some background information about how this all started. So from the time I was a little kid, I remember looking at the front bumpers of cars to see what kind of insects were there. Grasshoppers, butterflies, and bees. So you can see on that front bumper and the grill, there's lots of insects that are hit there. And I kind of wondered, how many bees are actually getting hit by cars? So people really care about bees, and there's a big movement to save the bees. Lots of different ways people want to save the bees. I have said we need to be aware of bees, but people have suggested that roadsides might actually be good pollinator habitat. This is because roadsides, especially out here in the West, get a lot of their runoff from the rain. They have a lot of flowers, and therefore they have a lot of kinds of bees. So there have been a handful of studies looking at how many insects are killed by cars. Often they're lumping insect groups together like Hymenoptera. So this study suggests that there could potentially be billions of pollinating insects that get killed annually by cars. So most of these studies have only been done on eastern woodlands. Little is known about the West. What about bees in the West? Also, most of these studies were done by people walking the sides of the road and picking up dead bugs. That means you're going to be restricted to big bees like bumblebees and honeybees. Bumblebees and honeybees, however, only make a small fraction of bee diversity, especially in the West. And in fact, most kinds of bees are much smaller than honeybees. So potentially these other studies have been missing a lot of the bees that get killed by cars. So I wanted to approach this in a new way. I used sticky glue traps taped to my front bumper. Then I would drive around and record how many miles I drove and count the number of bees that I hit in that sticky trap. For example, here I have 2 bees, a mason bee and a sweat bee. I drove lots of different routes across the state of Utah, visiting family, going to research sites. And then I did a lot of estimation and interpolation to try to figure out how many bees are killed daily by cars. Okay, I wanted to go through some of the estimations that we had to do in this study. So we talked about the sticky trap that I stuck on the front bumper. Then I would count the number of bees like I just talked about. Then I would standardize by the surface area of the trap and the distance driven. So bees per surface area of the trap per kilometer. Then I would multiply by the average collision surface. So I'm counting the collision surface as the front bumper and grill. I didn't include the windshield because depending on the speed, the bee could just float over the windshield. But everything that's perpendicular to the road, I consider that a collision surface. So then we have bees per car per kilometer. Then I would multiply by the total distance driven to estimate how many bees I might have hit with my one car. If I caught 1 bee in that little sticky trap, potentially does that mean I hit 10 bees, something like that. Then, in order to understand how many bees are hit per road per day, I would multiply that by the average traffic data. Traffic data was based on average traffic per day, but also I had a minimum estimate of traffic per day. So then I kind of know how many bees are hit per day for every route. And it turns out there could be a lot of bees hit per day. So I drove lots of different routes, freeways, highways, back roads, even some dirt roads. Let's just look at this one. This is a trip from Salt Lake City to Moab. The estimates are between 3.5 million to 12 million bees per day. So if you add all this up, it equates to tens of millions of bees being hit every day on Utah roads. And now this is not all just honeybees. I actually counted over a dozen different kind of bee genera in my sticky traps. Big bees and small bees, lots of different diversity. But it's not all bad news. So lots of studies show roadside plantings, if creating healthy habitat, can keep insects on the sides of the road. They don't cross unless there's a reason to cross. However, roadside plantings in the center median can probably attract bees to that center, forcing them to cross roads, causing more collisions and deaths. So what did we learn? Well, potentially hundreds of millions of bees are getting killed every summer on Western roads. That's a lot of bees. But the more we are aware of bees and bee diversity, the more we can plan healthy roadside habitats. Rather than planting center medians with wildflowers, let's increase healthy habitat on the sides of roads to help avoid collisions with cars and help save the bees.